The Doc's on the line. Dr. Football Bill Chachkes. Doc, how you doing this afternoon?
J-Rock, good morning. How you doing there? I got my time slot fixed up. I apologize, but you left somebody speechless too there.
Oh, hey, no problem, man. Yeah, I hit you up during last segment. I'm like, where you at, Doc Football? Am I coming back with you or not, man? And glad to have you back here, though, and with us. And, normally we do the NFL thing. I thought this would be a good way to kind of mix this up a little bit. As you heard from my caller there, I've been talking a little bit about how I can just already see if he was to speculating ahead and Cardale Jones said, hey, I'm going to try this NFL thing, I could easily see him in the next couple of months being that guy that gets talked right on up the draft charts. I want to talk to you about some guys' draft stock coming out of this game. Of course, that always happens with the national championship game because it's the one everybody's watching. But before that, how about the game? What were your thoughts watching that game last night? Buckeyes with not just a victory, but a real dominant performance.
Well, there's some people that are going to say, Ohio State is the team, and it's true. They came to play, but Oregon didn't show up, so I think that's why there was such a large disparity. That being said, obviously, the running back with a tremendous game, Meyer with a well-coached game, very few mistakes that cost them any problems. I mean, there were little miscues here and there, but you can't get much better of a national college championship game than that. Of course, we had nothing to go on, this being the first real one, the first playoff game that we've been waiting for so many years.
Absolutely, and that's why I was jokingly earlier calling it the first official one. I know there's been a whole bunch before, but we'll just start keeping track from here. And a big victory, but as I said, kind of ties right into your specialty. You've been a draftnik, self-described, as you'd say, for 30-plus years, working on a book on that very topic. So I thought, everybody always looks at these games, whether it's the bowl games, whether it's the big national title game, and starts looking at whose draft stock went up, went down. Obviously, guys have to declare, but the two focal points, the quarterbacks on each side, were either one of them to decide here. First off, what are your thoughts on that? Jones being 3 games in. My thoughts with him is just simply his sample size being small plays to his benefit if he's to come out in the draft, because I was explaining earlier, I mean, you can't have much of a better 3-game run than 3 huge leverage games that all had meaning, and he came up victorious, and each one of them never looked the moment was never too big for him. He never looked overwhelmed. He's got all the physical gifts. I mean, yes, of course, there's a million reasons for him to come back as well, but there's millions of green reasons for him to skip the game and go straight to passing go and start developing on that level. I could see that temptation being big for Cardale Jones. And on the other side, a lot of people anticipating ahead, where does Marcus Mariota go? What are your thoughts on those two coming out and their draft stock? Because I would think that Mariota's tumbled a little bit, not tumbled completely, but his draft stock shook up a bit by a shaky performance yesterday. Meanwhile, Jones soars up. Start with the quarterbacks. Who raised and lowered their stock? Where are you at with those guys?
I'm going to go the other way first and talk about Mariota. Regardless of how that game was, and where there were some deficiencies, he's NFL ready. I believe it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he'll be in this draft. The question is, will he be that top 5 first-round pick, or will the quarterbacks be devalued a little bit this year, and will he be somewhere from 6 to 10? That's really a big question right now. And when you look at the teams that need quarterbacks, who's going to go first, Jones or Mariota? Whether or not Isaac Jones comes out, I think he'd be doing himself a disservice if he came out, because, like you said, the sample size is so small. He may slide a little bit, and I would hate to see that happen. So I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea if he came back, but being the way things are, he's probably ready to come out and take a crack at it.
Well, because normally I would 1,000,000% say this is not even a thinking decision here to come back, but the unique circumstances that surround the Ohio State quarterback position, I think that puts a different slant of pressure on the thought process. I mean, if I'm Cardale Jones and I'm his dad or family, we're having this whoever it is that he consults, because I don't know who specifically his person is, but whoever's in his circle, these are things that I'm thinking, not just from a one perspective, but all the different angles that, but then again, you only get, and this is where I go, but it's easy for me to say, don't make the money. You only get to go to college once, you only get to go through that and experience it once, but you, in a short order, you've already experienced a lot of the things that you go for if you're playing football, as far as winning a championship and having a great season and all of that. So I don't know, but normally I'd be 100% about, you don't even think about going out, but I think the OSU circumstances obviously are unique.
Yeah, I agree, and you can't say he had a bad game. Like you said, for the sample size, he's done very well, especially, with an increase in production and display of ability each week. So that's where you have a balance right now with tipping of the scales, whether or not he will or will not. And obviously, the league and the NCAA don't make it easy for you when you have all of 72 hours to make a decision.
Right, and that's the other thing, too, is the time crunch against it there, man. And how about in general, too? Obviously, this has nothing to do with a draft decision or anything, but you mentioned the running back earlier. Can't say enough about Zeke Elliott and what he showed and following in. A lot of people had questions about, hey, Carlos Hyde, obviously an NFL-level back. We've seen him at the next level here. The Buckeyes, will they have a drop-off at the position? And hell no, they didn't have a drop-off. They had Ezekiel Elliott running through the hole, not dropping off
right.
of it.
Right. And, I don't like to drop names. That's not who I am. But talking with a buddy of mine who doesn't mind me mentioning his name, we were messaging back and forth yesterday, Pat Kerwin. A lot of people don't know, before he became a journalist, he worked in the league. He worked for the New York Jets organization, and at one time he worked for Hofstra University as well in the football department. And I asked Pat yesterday, I said, what do you think? Stick them out? And he says, it's better than 50-50 because this is the time right now where there's a surge in skilled players' value. That may go down in the next year or two. You may see a drop in the value of a high caliber player, a skilled position player like a running back, a receiver, a quarterback. And that goes with ebb and flow. And again, that's the league that directs that. The league has a lot more spin on that than fans realize.
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going with that, absolutely. And, running backs in general have been devalued in the draft, with the exception of the rare, stupid team who, trades up to take a guy in the top 5 or something like that, and then said player 2 years later can't even get on the field for a playoff game after another team trades a first-round pick for him. So, yeah, mistakes do happen in taking them, but that's not even a worry. I mean, obviously, he's coming back for another season, but, this is always that time of year where the focus starts to shift as the NFL is winding their season down, as the college game now wraps up a little later than usual, but with a fantastic championship game. Now you start to focus, and you and I, after we get past the Super Bowl, we'll start really sitting down and getting into some of this draft talk. But a little bit of time left. Obviously, the NFL still rolling, both the teams that are in and the teams that are out. As we know, the Browns in the middle of a search for an offensive coordinator, but they've got tons of competition for coaches and coordinators after Black Monday. Several guys let go. Rex Ryan already, and I'll tell you what, before we get into the playoff games, I want to talk to you about that, but let's talk the coaching carousel. I was a bit, I don't want to say surprised. I think that the competition of playing against the Jets is part of that decision, and obviously the defensive core that they've got in Buffalo appeals to a defensive-minded guy like Rex Ryan, but I really thought perhaps Atlanta, perhaps some other. I thought there were some better opportunities, but I think that staying in the division with the Jets may have been a big pull to Rex Ryan going with Buffalo. What do you think? Are you surprised with the ending up of Rexy there and perhaps Greg Roman with him?
Well, I'll tell you this about Sexy Rexy. In all the years I covered the New York teams, we were never lacking for a pull quote for whatever story we were working on coming out of Forum Park. So I'm going to give you this. Regardless of how much he runs his mouth, he's no dummy, and that had to weigh in on, the fact that he'd be staying in the AFC East. Certainly, it had nothing to do, it had less to do with the dollar signs and more to do with the highway road signs on the New York State Thruway, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's what I was figuring. I'm like, come on, man, because if I'm making that decision, I'm not saying that would be my lone motivating factor. Obviously, you got family you talk to and money and team and all of that, but if the opportunities are equal, yeah, the chance to stick it to somebody who, especially if I may not be happy with the way things went down and all of that. Plus, hey, that to me, you kind of got, although they're like the Browns, always changing regimes, but you do kind of have a little bit, at least for a year or two, you would think you kind of have a little bit of a head up on your competition in the division because you're so intrinsically knowledgeable to the inner workings of the team you just left that that plays into it a little bit, I'm sure, as well too. But surprising, like I said, Atlanta was one that I saw and said, man, because I think Atlanta's a very healthy opening there. I mean, yeah, they got a lot of holes too, but they've got some good pieces, especially offensively. I know some people are higher on Matt Ryan than others are, but they've got some skill players. They've got some pieces there, man. I think that's a more attractive job than people are looking at. I'll tell you what is a job that I don't know which way it's going to go. I was mentioning this earlier, is Denver. They lose this weekend, and we see now they've got tons of decisions to make, and they've cleared out the coaching staff. Fox is gone. They're going to not bring back not only John Fox, but any of the assistant coaches as well. And I said earlier, 18 unrestricted free agents, starting with Peyton Manning, working your way on down through the Thomases and a bunch of the skill players, and you got a lot of decisions for that team to make. What does your gut tell you? Which way do you think John Elway is going to attack this? Is he going to try to bring back Manning for another year, try to patch it together for one more season and try to get another run? Or is he going to look at this as a chance to wipe the decks clear with a new coach and start with a young quarterback or a different quarterback and let a lot of these big-ticket guys go? Well, where do you see Denver going after the couple of seasons that they've ran up here? Do you see them rebuilding or do you see them reloading?
Well, I think contrary to popular belief, Peyton Manning will be back not for 1 year, but for two more years. And I think John Elway, and this is Dr. Football nodding has an agreement with me on the other side of the room here. I can't see Elway completely clearing out the team. The coaching staff, I understand. And I'll double back for a minute to Woody Johnson and the Jets. Yeah. I wasn't surprised that Ryan left. I was surprised that he pulled the plug on John Idzik so fast. Not that he didn't deserve it. He did. And I never understood why they made that hire in the first place. Again, and he's going to get mad at me for saying this, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But Ted Sundquist is also a good friend of mine, and I can't see him still not having a job in the league after all this time, after what he did for the Denver organization before Elway came on. Obviously, Elway won't bring back a guy that he let go that was there before him. But sooner or later, he's got to get a job in this league. It's just ridiculous that he's not a general manager or a director of player personnel somewhere.
So you're leaning towards them patching things up, trying to get Peyton back for another year here, another year or two. I would think, I don't know, man. I would want 2 year, and it's hard because Peyton's obviously in a position where he's going to decide year by year where his career is going to go. That puts me, it's almost like not the same because you have the pull of being the legend, but Brett Favre in Green Bay at the end where you reach the point where we're not saying that the guy doesn't have a good year or two left in him, but he wouldn't make the commitment, and they've got to figure. It's hard to keep going 1 year at a time in the NFL because you have to put your team together a certain way. You spend money a certain way. You go more veteran because you're trying to win now. And that becomes a place where if you don't win now, you end up not just rebuilding, but you end up going through that ugly couple of years where you really do have to clear things out, And that's the thing, Vashawn, great point in the chat room. They don't have